This video is brought to you by Brilliant. Romania's democracy has been under strain since being plunged into somewhat of a political and constitutional crisis late last year, when presidential elections were annulled after the first round was won by a little-known candidate called Călin Georgescu. Georgescu, whose politics are usually described as far-right, was later barred from the rerun by a constitutional court, which last week banned another independent candidate with similar views. Unsurprisingly, all of this has raised questions about the health of Romania's democracy, from both supporters and opponents of Georgescu alike. So in this video, we're going to take a look at the rise of the far right in Romania, unpack the current political crisis unfolding right now, and how the Kremlin and White House are stoking tensions further. We're getting remarkably close to 1 million subscribers, and currently 72% of you haven't yet subscribed. So lend us a hand and subscribe today. In many respects, Romania stands as a model of successful European enlargement. After decades of tumult, following the 1989 revolution that ended Nicolae Ceausescu's dictatorship, the country underwent a complete transformation. Romania's GDP per capita, adjusted for purchasing power, catapulted from North African levels in the early 2000s to surpass Hungary and Greece, nearly matching Poland, long considered the economic benchmark among new EU members. However, these headline figures mask an important fact of Romanian society, which is that the country is one of the most unequal countries in the EU. The most prosperous 20% of Romanians have incomes more than 7 times that of the poorest 20%, who mostly live in rural areas, which has created a stark rural-urban divide. Romanian politics has been dominated by both the centre-left Social Democratic Party and the centre-right National Liberal Party, which have done very little to bridge this divide, and their patronage-driven politics has stoked anti-establishment sentiment across the country, especially in its poorer areas. Unsurprisingly, this situation has provided the perfect opportunity for protest parties to rally disenchanted voters. Enter the AUR, the Alliance for the Union of Romanians, a party founded by George Simion. Years before joining politics, Simion focused on rallying support for the reunification of Moldova with Romania, organising marches in support of uniting the two countries, and even facing deportation from Moldova as a result. In 2019, he founded AUR, and the party gained traction ahead of the 2020 election, where it won 9% of the vote, seemingly out of nowhere. While Simion described his own politics as Christian democratic, the AUR are usually described as far-right in the international press. As well as pushing for unification with Moldova, they also campaigned against same-sex marriage, COVID restrictions, and EU climate policies. After Russia invaded Ukraine, Simion shifted the party to capitalise on Romanians' waning solidarity for Ukraine. For context, initially Romanians rallied behind Ukraine, welcoming refugees and condemning Russian aggression. But by 2023, this solidarity had waned, both because of recurring tension over the preservation of the Romanian language among Romanian minorities in Ukraine, and because of controversies over Ukrainian grain imports and Danube dredging. These tensions took their toll, and by early 2024, polling showed that less than 20% of Romanians wanted to continue providing aid to Ukraine. Simion seized on these issues, advocated for stopping all military aid to Ukraine, and heavily criticised the government for allowing the import of cheaper grain from Ukraine and its transit through Romania. In addition to AUR, the rise of ultra-nationalist factions has given birth to offshoots, such as the Party of Young People and SOS Romania. The latter of these two is led by anti-vaxxer Diane Iovanovici-Șoșoacă, who won a seat in Romania's parliament in 2020 as a member of the AUR, but was expelled and formed her own pro-Russian party, arguing that Romania should annex Ukrainian territories that were once part of interwar Greater Romania. Anyway, fast forward to November 2024, Romania held the first round of its presidential election, which was won by a virtually unknown independent candidate called Călin Georgescu, emerging in first place with 22.9% of the vote. The centre unexpectedly collapsed, with the centre-left PM and the leader of centre-right Liberals both eliminated in the first round. The reformist candidate, Elena Lasconi, came second with 19% of the vote, followed by the incumbent PM and then Simion. Georgescu is a deeply religious nationalist former AUR member with some controversial takes. He's praised Russian President Vladimir Putin as a man who loves his country, pledged to end all support for Ukraine, and has previously expressed support for Romania's 20th century fascist movement, and is also pretty big into conspiracy theories. Anyway, in the run-up to the election, he'd been polling between 5% and 6%, and wasn't invited to debates, had no billboards, no commercials, no party, only a very successful TikTok campaign, which was marred by suspicions of Russian interference. This shock result did slightly overshadow the parliamentary election that happened between the first round of the presidential election and the runoffs, which saw the AUR making significant gains and coming in second place. SOS Romania and Party of Young People did pretty well too, and now these three far-right parties hold around 35% of the seats in parliament, forming a powerful opposition to the pro-NATO European government. As the far-right rallied behind Georgescu, he surged further in the polls and looked likely to win the runoff. However, in a shock decision just 2 days before the vote, the Constitutional Court moved to annul the results of the first round, after claims of Russian interference and a massive social media promotion in his favour. They then barred him from participating in the rescheduled runoff set for May, stating that he had failed to comply with ballot regulations. This wasn't the first time the court has done this either. Last October, the court blocked Șoșoaca's candidacy for the presidential race, claiming she might undermine Romania's standing within the EU and NATO. They then banned her again this month after she reapplied to run. Unsurprisingly, this has caused a fair bit of upset in Romania. Hundreds of Georgescu supporters gathered outside the election bureau last week in protest, with violent clashes between protesters and police. Outrage escalated after an investigation found that the TikTok campaign, which favoured Georgescu, was actually in part financed by the centre-right Romanian National Liberal Party, a junior coalition partner of the outgoing government. Even Lasconi, the reformist candidate, called the ruling illegal, and her party joined forces with the three far-right parties to file an impeachment against the centrist president for his role in upholding the constitutional ruling, leading him to resign. With Georgescu forced out of the race, support has swelled back to Simeon, who's now expected to win with 30% of the first round vote. Although we should say he's taken somewhat of a less pro-Russia tone recently, and could lose to centrist candidate Nica Serdan in the second round. Meanwhile, this whole spectacle has drawn the attention of both the Kremlin and White House, both of which have slammed the election annulment as undemocratic, adding fuel to the fire as tensions simmer in the run-up to new elections in May. Ultimately, what's overwhelmingly clear is that a large fraction of the Romanian electorate is unhappy with the establishment parties, and lawfare or banning candidates won't solve this. At TLDR News, we're always trying to help you learn more about the world around you. Luckily for us, our sponsor this week, Brilliant, shares this same commitment, with thousands of lessons in maths, science, programming, and AI. And not only that, their interactive lessons teach you by doing, instead of just asking you to mindlessly memorize stuff. This helps you build your critical thinking skills and become a better thinker. For instance, Brilliant's newly updated maths courses help you establish a strong foundation in algebra. It then helps you build on this, teaching you how to conquer calculus, all while maintaining an emphasis on problem solving and reasoning. The thing I like best about this, though, is that their mathematical courses help you develop your mathematical intuition and fluency, skills that you can use in the real world. As we've told you before, data skills are absolutely necessary for navigating the modern world, and Brilliant is the best way to get them. To try Brilliant for free, visit brilliant.org/TLDR or scan the QR code on screen, or you can click the link in the description. You'll also get 20% off an annual premium subscription.